Okay. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to New Mexico's Albuquerque Hispano Chamber of Commerce Business Echo Program. We're happy you can join us this morning. Before we get started, we'd like to review our why, and we would also like to go over a few housekeeping items. By using the Echo model, we're creating a space where IT business owners, professionals, and entrepreneurs can connect with experts and with each other to share strategy, tackle real challenges, and grow together. This isn't about one person teaching and everyone else listening. It's about all of us learning together, because when one business grows stronger, it strengthens the entire ecosystem. And I wanted to review some housekeeping items quickly. Please keep in mind that this session is being recorded, so please be mindful of what you choose to share. Please mute your mic if you're not speaking, and please keep your camera on. We love to see your smiling faces, and it really helps to build our community. If you can also please update your Zoom to show your first name, last name, and agency. And also, as far as questions, if you can please place them in the chat box or use the raise hand icon, we would appreciate it. And lastly, please be kind and mindful of others. Okay, we are going to get started with introductions. So I'd like to start by introducing myself. My name is Laura Chavez. I'm a project manager here at the Albuquerque Hispano Chamber of Commerce. And Dominic, to introduce you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Dominic Baca. I'm a destination sales representative in our convention and tourism department here at the Albuquerque Hispano Chamber of Commerce. Thank you all for being here. It's a pleasure to see you all.
Good morning. My name is Mark Fidel. I'm a proud member of the Hispano Chamber of Commerce. I'm also a subject matter expert with the Project Echo team here at the Chamber and today's presenter.
Great. Now we'd like to get started with our hub team online. Roxy, can you please introduce yourself?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Roxy Marquez, and I am a program manager with Project Echo. Thank you, Laura.
Greg?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Greg Mullen, the president of ABQ IT, and I'm a subject matter expert and member of the hub team.
Thank you, Greg. Elliot?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Elliot Padras. I'm a program specialist with Project Echo. Good to see those of you that joined.
Great. Okay, now we'll move on to our participants. Susanna.
Morning, everyone. I'm Susanna Jones with Whatever Time Finds.
Great, welcome. Ernie?
So whatever fine times, I met that woman last week, and she's supposed to come to the chamber this week. Anyway, Ernie C. DeBaca, Albuquerque Hispano Chamber. Great little networking opportunity right now. Thanks. Looking forward to it.
Paul?
Good morning, I'm Paul Pettis. I'm with California Institute of Applied Technology, New Mexico campus. I'm the academic partnerships liaison here in New Mexico.
Great, welcome, Paul. We're happy to see you here this morning. Is there anyone that I missed? If not, then I'd like to move forward with our presenter for this morning. Who is going to start us off with a didactic presentation. The topic is cyber insurance strategy and implementation, presented by Mark Fidel of Fidel Consulting Group. Mark.
Laura, thanks. Appreciate it. So my sneaking suspicion as to why our participation is a little low today is people saw the title and then fell asleep about a third of the way through the title because of the word insurance. Insurance can be really a mundane topic until you absolutely need it. And what I'm trying to present here, and thankfully we're recording, is an overview of cyber insurance, really focused on small to medium-sized businesses, pure and simple. And so what I'm going to go through here is, I've timed it, it's about 20 minutes. We're going to cover cyber insurance. And this is coming from the perspective that you know very little about cyber insurance, but you probably know a lot about insurance given your role in your company. So cyber risk, again, no longer just an issue for large enterprises, government entities, etc. If you use a computer system, computer network, if you use computing resources, whether they are yours or whether you are renting or leasing software or hardware from others, there's a vulnerability there. And you're relying on these computer systems to run your day-to-day business. Think about the various things that you use your computer for, from collecting payments to paying vendors to transacting business and exchanging information with clients and vendors. So as we rely more and more on technology, right, small to medium-sized businesses are prime targets for cyber attacks because the focus on running the business is running the business. The focus on running the business isn't on cyber defense. And so what we and Greg and other subject matter experts are here to help you with is understand why the technology aspect of your business is so important. And so today we're going to cover cyber insurance. Here's a local story of it won't happen here, essentially. In 2022, Albuquerque Public School had a ransomware attack, and it highlighted the vulnerability of even the most established organizations. It disrupted a variety of administrative activities within the school district and took a fair amount of effort to get resolved and to come back from that. Disruption from the ransomware attack extended beyond Albuquerque Public Schools. It affected local businesses and services, and it illustrated that attackers target organizations of all sizes without discrimination. Oftentimes, a ransomware attack is not intentional. It is a drive-by, right? The unlucky person who opened that particular email with that particular attachment that had ransomware in it was one of millions of emails that were sent out with that ransomware attached. And it's simply a statistics game from the bad guy's perspective. Unless you're being specifically targeted, then that's a different story altogether. So today's threat landscape, really relative and relevant to SMBs, are as follows. Ransomware, it involves the malicious software that attacks a victim's data and network, rendering inaccessible until a ransom is paid. Essentially, they are using your computer environment to encrypt your own data and holding it ransom until you pay them a certain amount of money in the form of some sort of cryptocurrency, usually Bitcoin, in exchange for them the password to unlock your computers. Okay. SMBs typically lack robust cybersecurity measures, and that makes them easier targets for attackers looking for a quick financial gain. BEC vulnerabilities, business email compromise. These setups trick employees into revealing either sensitive information and or transferring funds by impersonating trusted contacts, right? So if somebody, I'll use the chamber as an example, somebody in accounting receives an email purporting to be from Ernie C. DeBaca, asking them to transfer or buy gift cards on a, stop at that moment. Don't do that. In fact, walk over to Ernie or give Ernie a call and say, hey, Ernie, did you just send me an email asking me to buy a bunch of gift cards or to transfer a large sum of money somewhere, right? And that simple phone call could stop a lot of money from leaving the organization, as an example. SMBs often face challenges in employee training and security protocols, making them vulnerable to these deception tactics. Now, let's say it was a legitimate request. Well, just a little bit more time has passed for somebody to validate that it was a legitimate request. and we can go on our way with the business at hand. Finally, supply chain attack risk. This is especially relevant here in Albuquerque and in New Mexico, where we have two significant national labs and a number of federal resources. There are a number of SMBs that are in the supply chain to Sandia to Los Alamos. Supply chain attacks target vulnerabilities in third-party vendor or services, allowing attackers to infiltrate an SMB through trusted connections. Many SMBs rely on a network of suppliers and partners, and that increases their risk if these external entities lack security measures. Personally, I have a small business, a small consulting firm. I'm about to sign a new client effective January 1, and they sent me a security assessment for my environment to make sure that the information that I'll be exchanging with them comes from a secure environment. And so even the smallest of organizations can pose a threat to larger organizations in the supply chain. So what cyber insurance covers? Oftentimes it covers experts who are available in the event of an incident to be able to help you, to be able to figure out A, what happened, B, how to stop it from continuing, and C, how to recover. Okay, so incident response experts are available. Forensic analysis can be included in the coverage that's available, but I'm of two minds on forensic analysis. Let's say that you approve the spending of the insurance policy money to determine who did it. And let's say the answer is, well, the attack came from North Korea. Then what do you do? Okay, on that level. It's often better that the money is spent recovering and preparing to make sure it doesn't happen again versus finding out who did it. Now, if the who did it was an insider, okay, that's a different story, right? If it was an employee, that's a different story altogether. Insurance policies can often help with business recovery, right? In the event of a damaging attack. They can help with legal support to either get back into compliance or remain compliant with various regulations that your SMB may be under. And coverage for regulatory fines that may occur if in fact your system was successfully attacked because you hadn't kept up with software patching, that type of thing. All of these things are possible, and these are some of the things that cyber insurance covers. Make sure you talk about that with your agent. What it doesn't cover. Well, it doesn't cover gaps in the business email compromise chain. It doesn't cover somebody answering that email which was purported to be from the CEO, but it really wasn't. And they went ahead and bought $3,500 gift cards from Walmart, right? And scraped off the code and sent images of the code to somebody, right? Because they thought the CEO wanted that. It doesn't cover the fact you may be missing security controls. It doesn't cover misrepresentation if in fact, when you filled out your application, you either didn't answer truthfully or you didn't answer the correct information about your computing environment. It also doesn't cover late discovery of exclusions, meaning if you're not timely in reporting an event to your insurance company, then coverage may not be available. And so my simple advice is if you know there's a cyber attack happening or you're a victim of it, the 2 or 3 individuals or entities you want to know you want to make aware of that this has happened is your attorney, either inside or outside counsel, your insurance company, because there may be coverages that can help you recover, right? And then probably your accountants, right? From that perspective, because likely money's involved and you have to have a game plan involved. And so from that perspective, those are the things cyber insurance doesn't. Carriers assess you in the following ways, and it's critical to understand how you are looked at by insurance carriers, okay? 70% of small SMBs lack multi-factor authentication implementation, meaning it either takes no password or just one method to get into a system. So username and password, but then not a challenge to that, meaning that system isn't sending you a 6-digit code via your cell phone to be able to confirm that, yes, the person who's attempting to log in also has the correct cell phone, to be able to say, this is something I know, this is something I have. The most common multi-factor authentication implementation that just we're almost all aware of is your ATM card with the bank. You have the card and you know the PIN, okay? And those two things provide 2 factors of authentication that you're the right person to be able to access that account. 60% of SMBs do not regularly validate their backups. In a previous session, I harped on the fact that don't do backups for the sake of doing backups. Do backups for the sake of being able to prove you can restore from those backups in the event you need to, okay? And if you're not the one responsible, if your business is not the one responsible, but in fact you hire a third-party technology provider to do those backups, make sure that they're testing the backups to make sure that those backups can be restored from. 50% of SMBs have insufficient what's called endpoint detection and response solutions. And we talked about EDR in a prior session. And then 80% fail to maintain timely patch management. When your Windows computer or your Apple computer says it's time for that update, unless you're in the midst of something like this, let that update happen, right? Don't keep pushing the updates off, because the updates sometimes are aesthetic, right? They change the look and feel of the operating system. Most of the time they're carrying security updates for weaknesses that are in the operating system that Microsoft or Apple know has to be fixed. Same for your phones, right? Your cell phones. Let those updates happen. So when did it pay off to have cyber insurance? Well, a cyber incident in Las Cruces highlighted the importance of cyber insurance for small businesses. The insurance coverage funded a swift response to the attack because the SMB contacted their insurance company quickly, like within the same day of noticing the attack. It enabled the affected business to recover quickly and to mitigate financial losses. And it showcased the critical role of preparedness and proper insurance in navigating cyber threats. The insurance also helped with the notification of their customers whose data was potentially affected by this cyber attack. Common mistakes that SMBs make: assuming your general liability coverage includes cyber coverage. That's not the case. Okay, don't assume that. If you're thinking, this isn't a great presentation because I already have GL coverage, doesn't cover cyber. Cyber is a specific and separate coverage unto itself. You're neglecting business email compromise coverage. Talk to your insurance company about this, okay? Not testing backups. Don't make that mistake. Make sure that if you're you should be backing up critical information. B, make sure you can restore from those backups. And then lacking an incident response plan. Your incident response plan shouldn't be to throw up your hands and start crying if you notice an attack happening. Your incident response plan should be, all right, let's get a hold of our IT provider. Let's get a hold of our insurance company. Let's get a hold of our attorney, right? And let's see what we're facing. Oftentimes, cyber insurance policies also come with coverage that provide technical assistance as well. So take advantage of that, assuming it's in the coverage. Cost versus risk, right? Why should you spend for cyber insurance? Well, understanding the financial implications is crucial. First of all, cyber insurance premiums. Again, your coverage may vary and your premiums may vary, but annual premiums for cyber insurance can range from $2,000 to $7,500, depending on the coverage options and risk factors. Now, again, these are for example purposes only. Talk to your insurance carrier or your agent for specific quotes. Ransomware costs. The financial impact of ransomware attacks can lead to losses in the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, low millions, highlighting the significant risk to SMBs. Okay. Now, if we look previous slide, $2,000 to $7,500 versus $200,000. Might be worth it to have that as cyber insurance in place, right? Business email compromise losses. I worked with a nonprofit legal provider, a nonprofit provider of legal services earlier this year, who was a victim of a BEC. $250,000 walked out of their account because of a business email compromise. They could not recover it either. Risk versus cost analysis. When comparing the cost of insurance premiums to potential losses, the risk often outweighs the cost of coverage, pure and simple. 30-day action plan for you. First of all, implement multi-factor authentication in the systems where there are usernames and passwords necessary. So that could be username and password to get into your network, username and password to get into your payroll system, those types of things. Those types of authentication systems should also have MFA capability. Okay, check with your technical staff or your third-party provider to see where you can put MFA in. Validate the backups. Again, I know I'm being repetitive, but it's so crucial that if you're under a ransomware attack, the best place to restore from is from a viable backup. Also talk to your, when we jump back here, also talk to your technology provider to make sure that your backup system is not in the same, listen carefully, subnet as your main network. Because if you have a ransomware attack, you don't want your backups to also be affected. Build that incident response plan. Talk to your technology provider for some assistance here. There's a lot of templates out on the internet that are available, right? Or reach out to me through the chamber. I'm happy to provide some guidance there. And then review your cyber insurance policy. If you have one, get it reviewed. If you don't have one, talk to an agent today about doing that. You own the cyber risk. It's your business, right? And your employees and your customers' data and information is at risk. Okay, so leadership plays a crucial role. This should be a top-down approach. Insurance complements security. Insurance is part of a solution. It's part of a strategy. It's not standalone. Just because you have cyber insurance doesn't mean you shouldn't have cyber information security awareness training. Shouldn't mean you shouldn't have viable antivirus software. All of those things. It's part of your security program. Readiness matters most. Being prepared for an incident is critical. It's honestly not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And so organizations that prioritize readiness can respond more effectively, minimizing damage and minimizing recovery time. Not just an IT issue. If you've ever been involved in a ransomware attack, it can affect all parts of the organization. All right, that ties it up. Let's see what we have in terms of any questions. Happy to take them.
I have a question for you.
Please.
What is it like for somebody whose business gets infected with ransomware in terms of how do they know they've been infected? Like what's the typical way that they find out or experience that they have initially when it first starts?
Great question. Under the assumption that one or many systems are affected, but if there's at least one computer system that's affected, that computer system can't be logged into. You can't do anything with it. And typically there's a screen that indicates you've been infected with a certain variant of ransomware, right? The people who put these together are pretty proud of their work, so they name it, right? Or they'll use what's been publicly named, and you've been infected with this ransomware. And the screen will then go on to explain, in order to free up this system, right? Pay this number of Bitcoin to this Bitcoin wallet. If you need help with this, there's often a toll-free number or a website that you can go to. So they're very friendly in helping you part with your money, right? If it's more than one system, all of the computers involved will have a similar screen, and none of them will be operable, meaning you can't use them beyond turning them on, seeing this screen. If you turn them off, turn them on again, you'll see the same screen because the data, the entire hard drive has been encrypted and you don't have the password. Did that help?
Yeah, that's very informative. So it's a pretty scary situation. You show up to use your computer like you do every day at work, but you're only
Yep.
getting one screen and telling you that your computer is now under their control, and there's only one way to get it out of their control, and that's send them money.
Exactly. Now, if you have viable backups that haven't been affected, another way to get out of it is to wipe that computer, meaning take it, erase everything on the hard drive, isolate it from the network, restore from a good backup so that you are at the point where you last were, assuming a viable, timely backup, and you can restore that computer. It's important, though, to separate the computers from the network so that uninfected computers now aren't reinfected by computers that are still infected on the network. Okay, any other questions?
Okay, if there are no other questions,
No, that's fine. I can stop
if there are no
sharing.
other questions, we're going to move on to the case presentation.
Great. First of all, does anybody have a case that they'd like us to discuss in this venue? Nope. Okay, I have a case. Imagine that. So a local educational institution in 24, where are we at the end of 25? So in 24, experienced a relatively small ransomware attack. There were 5 systems affected, but one of those systems was also a server. And so there were 4 desktop computers and 1 server affected out of potentially low hundreds of computers. So not a big infection, but the problem was twofold. First of all, yes, those computers were affected. The educational institution could restore from viable backups, but the bad guys had also exfiltrated the data from that server. So not only was the data on that server encrypted, but the bad guys also had physical control of the data outside of that environment. And so the educational institution was advised to contact their insurance company. They had really good cyber coverage, to contact their attorney. And what the insurance company coverage paid for was another law firm, a technical firm to help with the negotiations and recovery. And it ended up being a business transaction with the bad guys. First of all, the bad guys could prove that they still had the data, that they had the data. They sent snippets of the information that they copied off. And it wasn't that the school couldn't come back to operation. School was running just fine. It was now that the bad guys had information pertaining to parents, pertaining to students, pertaining to employees that was deemed to be PII, personally identifiable information, and personally identifiable financial information. And in some of the students' cases, because there is a nurse medical setup on campus, there was some HIPAA information too. So all information that you don't want to be publicized, right? So the bad guy's threat was pay us $250,000 or we will publicize. The insurance company's vendors, a technology firm and a law firm who had worked with these bad guys before, negotiated it down to $40,000. The school had a $10,000 deductible. So the school was out $10,000 in cash. The insurance company paid the $30,000 remainder for the 40 in total. And then the insurance company paid for the law firm and the technology firm. Had really good coverage and it was timely. The hardest part was helping the leadership understand that, yes, we have to believe that the bad guys will hold to their promise to delete the data that they had once they receive the payment. Well, why would bad guys do that? Well, bad guys also have a reputation to maintain. Mainly, it's a reputation to maintain with that insurance company going forward because there will be future attacks. And the they want the insurance company to know that they're doing bad things in good faith, which is really tough to get a rational person to understand. But that's the end of it. Any questions on that? Okay, great. I think that covers it from a case
I have
study
a
perspective.
quick question
Oh,
on
sure.
that.
Yes.
Before
Yes.
the insurance gets involved, did they verify in any way that the questionnaire that the business or school answered up front before they obtained the policy was accurate?
Great question. So what Greg is referring to is when you buy a cyber policy, just like when you buy a life policy where you have to have a medical exam. And I'm going to use this analogy. If you buy a life insurance policy, you have to do a questionnaire about yourself, and likely you have to do blood work and a medical exam, depending on the value of the policy, et cetera, right? If the blood work and medical exam comes back, so let's say I'll be the fictitious insured. I said 1 drink per week, and the blood work comes back, advanced cirrhosis of the liver. So there's a disconnect between what I said on the application and what the medical exam says. So the agent comes back to me and says, "Hey, let's do your blood work again because there's a problem here." Now, shifting over to cyber liability or cyber insurance, you do the questionnaire, but there's no medical exam. So what they're relying on is what you're telling them about your environment. So Greg's question was, before the insurance gets deeply involved, do they go back and look at the questionnaire? Typically, Greg, I've seen it a couple of ways. Typically 50-50, to be honest. Yes, they do it sometimes and they say, "Hey, is all this still true?" And if it is, okay, yes, let's talk. Other times I've seen it, they go through all the motions and then come back for an audit after this dust is settled. Either way, the insurance company, let's say you lied on the application at the front end and they determine you've lied, no coverage, right? Or they've lied in the post-incident audit, well, then they can claw back and attempt to recover the money they spent on your behalf. So either way, you're subject to the information that you put in that application in the first place and that questionnaire. Okay. So Greg, don't lie. All right. Just pure and simple. Don't lie. Other questions?
Yeah, and it's not even just about lying, right? It's about if you're not sure when you're filling out that application, you need to be sure.
Yeah. You don't guess, right?
Mhm.
Either say, "I don't know. How can I find out?" Right? Turn to them to help out, right? Because
Yeah.
they're the ones you're paying premiums to. And by the way, I think there's a ton of underfunded cyber policies out there, meaning they're not charging the correct premiums for the risk they are undertaking by selling you the insurance, right? Primarily, Greg, because of the questionnaire method. Now the questions are getting better, but still, right? I don't know that I don't have advanced cirrhosis of the liver with just 1 drink a week. Maybe it's a genetic thing, right? Don't know that. That's
Mhm.
why it happens. So,
Thank you.
all right. Thank you. Okay.
Does anyone else have any questions or anything they'd like to share? Any kind of ransomware attacks? Anything that concerns them regarding this topic?
Has
Just
anybody go ahead,
I was going
Greg?
to say I've seen some data and I have some data that these attacks are just increasing in frequency going back 5 years, especially when you compare to other types of cyber crimes. Ransomware is just skyrocketing compared to those. Do you have similar data points that you could speak to?
As the questionnaires get better, as the intelligence gathering information protocols for the insurance companies get better, right? What you're seeing is a calming down of the premiums, but then also fewer coverages, right? Less coverage. So it's really important to understand what you're buying in a policy. It's not enough to say, "I have a cyber insurance policy." It's enough to say, "I have a cyber insurance policy that covers these things and excludes these things." Okay. it's a contract between you and the insurance company. Make sure you know what you're getting the benefit of the bargain for. Okay. If you're paying good premium money that can otherwise be used elsewhere, hopefully you never have to use it. But if you do need to use it, you want it to come through. Right. And so don't just say just like you might say, I have a general liability policy. Great. I have a cyber policy that specifically covers these things. Okay. And gosh, if you're a software developer, there's a different type of policy that you need in addition to your cyber insurance policy. You need a technology Arizona emissions policy that covers that if you're a technology firm and what you're selling is technology based. So it's really important to be knowledgeable or work with somebody who's knowledgeable, who's not also the same person trying to sell you the policy. No offense to people in the insurance business. I've sold it myself, right? But it always amazes me going to the hearing aid store to get your hearing checked for the same place that sells hearing aids. You might be hard of hearing if you come out of there. I don't know. Little healthy skepticism is sometimes useful.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. I was asking though, like, in terms of like ransom attacks in general, is it an increasing threat to businesses? And do you have any information on that? And also, I talk to a lot of business owners and they think that, oh, I'm too small. They're not going to come after my business. They're going after, the schools, the hospitals, the airline companies, and that kind of thing. Can you explain at all if that is a correct assumption or not?
In targeted attacks, you're not wrong, right? Why go after enterprise? Why go after SMB when there's enterprise? Well, a couple things. A lot of SMB attacks aren't intentional, meaning they are just caught in the mix of lots and lots, like tens of millions of email messages that are traveling around, eventually hitting a target, right? And the bad guys don't know that you're small business just opened the email until that ransomware has gotten a hold, copied itself as far as it could, and then beaconed out to their servers. At that point in time, there's probably software that takes over and says, great, I have another 50 computers that are now locked up with our ransomware, right? Let's see what we can do. At that point in time, maybe somebody's involved, right? But from a cost benefit perspective, if you're the bad guy, it makes sense to automate as much of this as possible, quite honestly, right? Now, if I'm going after Banner Healthcare or Presbyterian Healthcare Services, right, that's probably going to be a more concerted effort to make sure I get in appropriately. I'm going to have probably a social engineering campaign to make sure I'm hitting the right people, right? And I'm going to my ransomware is going to get into as many computer systems as possible to make it as painful as possible for this enterprise with deep pockets and a deep insurance policy, right? That I know I'll negotiate. The old adage is, why do you rob banks? Well, that's where the money is, right? Why do you attack larger organizations? Well, that's where the money is. Okay. And so, are ransomware attacks increasing? I think so, right? I think both on the targeted side as well as just on the random, shouldn't have opened that email side, right? And now I have a problem. Okay. I've come across 5-person companies where they've simply just had to replace all 5 computers. They weren't doing backups. They didn't have the money themselves to pay for it. They didn't have cyber insurance. So they had to start again. And, it can be really devastating to do that because it's not the hardware that's so hard to replace, right? Relatively speaking, it's that data that was on that hardware that is really difficult to replace. Okay. So I hope that helped.
Yeah.
Your question.
Great answer.
Okay.
That's all I had.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Mark, for that presentation. I think this is just such a wealth of information, especially for business owners. And I think unfortunately, it's one of those topics that we all kind of want to bury our heads in the sand about.
Absolutely.
And it's not until, we experience cyber attacks that it becomes, the information is absolutely crucial to keeping businesses running and being able to access that information that we need so badly. But this is so great. And if anybody wants to watch this video later or share it with others that might be experiencing ransomware attacks or have questions about it, please know that you can find these videos on YouTube at the Albuquerque Hispano Chamber of Commerce YouTube channel. And you can also find them in our IECHO as well. So we want to move on to asking if you can please take a moment to complete a survey. Dominic is posting the link in our chat box. And the survey helps us to create a curriculum, and just learning what your needs are, learning what interests you, that really helps us to build the curriculum that we bring to these sessions. So we'd appreciate it if you could just take a few minutes to complete that. The other thing I'd like to remind you of is that our sessions are every first and third Tuesday of the month. And we recommend placing a hold on your calendar for these times, and remind you'll also get a 30-minute reminder before the session starts. And let's see, the next session is going to be on January 20th, 2026. The topic is using AI to find federal contracting opportunities. And that's going to be presented by Greg Mullen of ABQIT. And lastly, I would just like to mention that if you have any questions or any cases that you would like to present or have us present on your behalf, we invite you to submit them. And Dominic is posting a link to where you can submit your case presentation form. And you can please, you can submit it by downloading it, filling it out, and sending it to us via email at hispanochamberecho@gmail.com. And you can also send any questions that you may have for us at that same email address. Dominic, is there anything you'd like to ask about?
No, thank you everyone for being here. We really appreciate your time and taking the time to be here with us and to discuss this valuable information as well related to. And we look forward to seeing you at our future session. Our next session will begin on January 20th, 2026 with Greg Mullen using AI to find federal contracting opportunities. So I think it should be very interesting as we dive into the 2026 year with our upcoming sessions and a few interesting sessions around artificial intelligence. So we look forward to seeing you there as we begin the new year.
Thank you again, Mark.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Have
you.
a good
everybody.
holiday, everybody.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.